And who's the co-host today? I don't want to steal your thunder. Thank you, Smitaji and Harishi, for a wonderful class. We'll let our co-host make the announcement and then I'll take off.
Radhe Radhe. Sorry for being late. Today I'm the co-host with Sandhya ji. Over to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Today we will discuss all the shlokas are important, right? So we will hopefully we are able to marvel at how sophisticated our body is, and all the 5 years that orchestrate so many things in our body that we take for granted. It's all happening silently. So we'll talk about that, and we'll get into an interesting discussion as well later on as part of this topic, and we will touch upon the pranayama aspect of it, right, that we keep on hearing about. So with that, let's get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Kumarji posted a pretty interesting question. So Kumarji, we can have a discussion at length. I think we keep on having that discussion, but yeah, it'll, I'm sure, come up in one of our sessions as well for more than once. So let me share my screen and we'll get started then. '29. So this shloka, we have two shlokas together. They've been combined because they kind of go hand in hand. So we will take both. And we'll split the recitation as well between participants who want to follow along. All right. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo, Ishvaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagat. All right, Radhe Radhe. Good morning, good evening. A very warm welcome to all of you. Let's get started. So we're going to talk about breath, and part of it is breathtaking stuff. Okay, if you really think about it, is breathtaking. All these years that we have been living this with this body, and so many functions that are based on that breath are truly breathtaking. Okay, that will help you hopefully marvel and appreciate how sophisticated our own body is, which is perfectly orchestrated by the complex system that has been put in by Brahmaji, with the guidance and inspiration from Vishnuji, of course, and he in turn, from the Param Purush itself. So let's get started with our shloka 4.29, and we're going to do 4.29 and 2 and 30 both. So part of the participants, they can follow along this one, and the remaining ones the next one. So let me start the recitation, and you're welcome to follow along. Apane juhvati pranam प्राणपानं तथा परे प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणः. All right.
Radhe Radhe Samji.
Volunteers.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Samji.
अपाने जुह्वति प्राणं प्राणे अपानं तदा परे प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणा. Radhe Radhe.
Samji, good to see you in your original avatar today. All right.
Payalji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Palji.
Radhe Radhe. Apane juvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapanagati rudva pranayam parayanaha. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Palji. We will be able to appreciate it more being a yoga instructor, I believe, right? Pranayama and all that stuff. So that's what we.
Yes. Very interesting topic today, indeed.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a few more hands.
आशुतोष जी राधे राधे.
राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe, Ashutosh.
अपाने जुवति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापान गतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायाम परायणाः. राधे राधे.
Thank you, Ashutoshi. Radhe Radhe.
संध्या जी राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe.
There are two Sandhyaji today. It's bound to cause confusion. Go ahead, please. Both we can take one after another.
Apane juvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapan gatirodhva pranayam parayanaha.
Very nice, Sandhya. All right, you can take the other Sandhyaji as well now. Radhe Radhe, Sandhyaji.
शिफाली जी. शिफाली जी राधे राधे.
Okay, I think we announced Sandhyaji, so let her complete as well. I think, and then we can take Shifali.
Okay.
If you mind Shifali.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you.
संध्या जी राधे राधे.
अपाने जुह्वति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापनागतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामापरायणः. Thank
Very
you.
nice, Sandhyaji. Radhe Radhe. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe.
All right, now we get back.
So we take all the hands. We take for next shloka.
You announced Shifali, so let's take maybe two here and then we move to the next one. The remaining
Okay,
hands.
Radhe. Okay. शिफाली जी राधे राधे.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Apane juhvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapan gati ruddhva pranayam parayanaha. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, very eloquent, Shifali. Good job. All right, we'll take one more hand here and then we move to the next one.
Okay. दिनेश जी राधे राधे.
Radha Dinesh ji.
राधे राधे. अपाने जुवति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापान गतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायाम परायणा. राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe, very nice, Dinesh ji. All right, so let's do the next one and then we'll come back and look at both together. Apare niyataharaha प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञक्षपेतकल्मषाः. All right.
Rahul ji राधे राधे.
If we had some remaining hands, let's pick them first and
We
then.
had some hands, but they all lower now. So I said Rahul ji.
Oh, it was too difficult, this one. Okay, you want to go back to the. All right. Anybody who wants to try this one?
Radhe Radhe.
Rahul ji, yeah.
No, go ahead.
अपरे निहिताहरा प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेप्यते यज्ञविदो यज्ञशपि कल्मषः.
Right, Rahul. Good job. All right, I can see a few more hands. Let's quickly take those.
शिरम्या जी राधे राधे.
Radhe Shramya.
Radhe Radhe. अपरे नियताहारा प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञाक्षपितकल्मषः.
Wonderful, Shramya. Very nice. Okay, let's take a few more hands.
रूपा जी राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe.
I'll also try it.
Yes, please go ahead.
Apare niyatahara prana pranishu juhvati sarve gnete yajnavido yagnakshapita यज्ञस्य पितकल्मषा.
Very nice, Rupaji. Thank you. All right, last three hands you can take, and then we'll get started.
Pallavi ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Pallavi ji.
राधे राधे. अपरे नियताहारा प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वे पयते यज्ञविदो यज्ञशपितकल्मषः. राधे राधे.
Wonderful. All right, last one. I see Riya ji.
Priya ji, Radhe Radhe.
राधे राधे. अपरे नियताहाराः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वे पेते यज्ञविदो यज्ञशपितकल्मषाः.
Very nice.
राधे राधे.
Radhe. Thank you, Riya ji. So let's get started then. Apane means the incoming breath. Juhvati means offer. Pranam means the outgoing breath. Prane in the outgoing breath. Apanam incoming breath. Tatha also apare others. Prana of the outgoing breath. Apana and the incoming breath. Gati movement. Ruddhva blocking. Pranayama control of breath. Pranayana wholly devoted. Apare others. Niyata having controlled. Ahara food intake. Pranan, life breaths, praneshu, life energy, juhvati, sacrifice, sarve, all, api, also, ete, these, yagna vida, knowers of sacrifices, yagna, kshapita, being cleansed by performance of sacrifices, kalmasha, of impurities. So the translation for these two shlokas goes like, still, others offer a sacrifice. We've been talking about sacrifice, okay, I hope you remember that. The outgoing breath and the incoming breath, while some offer the incoming breath into the outgoing breath. Some arduously practice pranayam and restrain the incoming and outgoing breaths, purely absorbed in the regulation of the life energy. Yet others curtail their food intake and offer the breath into the life energy as sacrifice. All these knowers of sacrifice are cleansed of their impurities as a result of such performances. So here, Lord Krishna has touched upon two aspects, the pranayam and the, one of the five life energies is focusing on the one way which is used to curtail our food intake. That is one of the austerities, right? Fasting we spoke about. However, we'll take this opportunity to know about all the four pranic forces that are operational in our body and talk about it. So let's get started. So today we are going to discuss about the breathtaking physiological wonder operating out of every breath that we take. Okay. Now we are going to look at it from a anatomy as Brahmaji has created, not from an material anatomy standpoint as we understand it, right? A biology teacher can probably explain it much better than I do, right? All the reactions, the catabolic, anabolic reactions, and all the good stuff that happens within our good and complicated stuff that happens within our body. There is a science behind it, how it operates actually. So we'll talk about these forces. So pranas is basically the very life force. Right? We say the circulation of pranic energy, and it has five aspects to it. One is the pran. The second one is called apan. The third one is called vyan, saman, and udan. Good names actually, if you want to keep it for their kids, right? So pran is not exactly breath. It is a subtle life force energy that pervades the breath and varieties of animate and inanimate object. It's the life force basically. In one of Maharajji's bhajan, he calls Krishna as Pran Vallabh, dear to our pran, one who is the very basis of our pran. So we'll talk about this. It's going to be a quick crash course. We'll not go too deep detail into it. We'll get into the concept of Bhagavad Gita, but let's quickly touch upon what are these five forces that we're talking about. Like I said, our body is a pretty complex machinery. If somebody simply thinks about the concept of how baby after taking birth, the body actually comes about, they will be able to marvel at this creation. There is it is not something that mother is simply taking food and everything is magically happening. When the baby is there, it's like a seed, and then the imprints, and then the organs start developing, and the full body starts evolving out of it, right? So there are a lot of things that happen in our body even when we are sleeping. This whole body of ours is a pretty sophisticated machinery. Like, one of my friends is an oncologist, and she was telling me that for somebody to develop cancer, it just takes one cell to go out of whack. Just one cell to go out of whack, and that can create that. In fact, we all have those cells in our body. It's only when they gang up together to an extent that they cannot be controlled, it becomes, that bigger cancer. Otherwise, our body keeps on destroying those, right? Our oxidants, our pranayama is considered the next oxidant these days when we give air to our body. So, anyways, let's get into the pranic aspect of it. The first one is the pranas. Let's quickly look at some of the aspects of it. It enters through all the senses that we have, like the nose, ears, eyes, mouth in our sense. And there, some say it is in Anahata Chakra or Agna Chakra, the center between the eyebrows, and some say near the heart region. And but the key point here is that this actually is enables us to absorb energy from food and water, from sight, sound, smells gathered to the sense organs, and from ideas and impressions communicated to the mind. So have you tried eating two fruit? And let's take, you close your eyes and your nose and try to eat two different fruits. You'll not be able to differentiate between their tastes. It can happen. It's a pretty interesting phenomenon, but it can happen. Try an ashpati, um, a peach and maybe an apple, by not having a sense of smell and sight, and see if you're able to differentiate the taste or not. Usually it becomes difficult to do that. So anyways, this is something that we absorb energy from food and water, sight, sound, all that contributes, and including the ideas and impression that is communicated. So that is where the pranic, it is the vital force in its totality. Okay. And it makes the food travel inward. That is, by doing so, it supports the other four functions of energy. You know what? The food travels inwards. If you are under the influence of gravity, do you think food will travel in some other direction? It will still travel in the same direction. So that is how beautifully this machinery has been designed by Brahmaji after he decoded tapa, 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 and figured out how to do the creation and create humans as well. In fact, it is said, when our body, when we are asleep, the amount of work our body does, it is equivalent to 40 factories worth of work. And if you were to put it in a form of a sound, it would make a loud sound a mile out. That much work is happening silently in our body. So did our biology teachers know that? To that extent, probably with science we'll get to that in one day. But so many things are going on. The second aspect is the samana part of it. It's a function of prana that digests and assimilates the incoming energy. So you got the energy, but the digestion and assimilation, the Jatharagni aspect of it, it says, right, when your body typically during sunrise and when the sun is at the horizon, your Jatharagni is at its peak, and that's usually the good time to have food because your fire of digestion is going to be supportive. And if you skip meals, that problems of acidity and stuff happens because body expects something around that time. So the samana aspect, it helps in digestion and assimilation of this. And there are too many information, will not get lost in all that information. So it's in a conjunction with Agni, it supplies the internal heat to cook and the food that we eat. Okay, so now the cooking part of it. It's also called the gatekeeper of our mental functions in a balanced way, and it allows us to make wise and healthy choices to which sense impressions and thought we allow to enter our mind. So that is the aspect of the samana aspect of it. We are not doing research on this topic to do, just giving you an appreciation of so many things that are happening in our body. Okay, they are perfectly orchestrated. The Vyana aspect, it draws the, once the energy has been drawn, it needs to be distributed as well, right, to so many channels, nadis, and so many things. It needs to be distributed, and Vyana is that force that distributes prana by causing it to flow, and it creates a sense of living energy we perceive as a the living energy that we perceive through our body, and Vyana is basically able to disperse that to the different parts of the body. And it is spread through the body course through the nadis. Like we say the Anulom Vilom, another name for that breathing, alternate nostril breathing, is called the Nadi Shodhan, right? Nadi Shodhan. So they basically they course through the nadis, and I think that Vyana aspect is active there. Then we have the next one is called the Udana aspect of it, the fourth life force that we have. So this one is a little difficult to conceptualize because now it's an upward movement, but it has an important principle. When I read that, if you look at it, the life transformation stuff, revitalization of will, and so many things, that Udana is that energy, willpower, and all that stuff that you exert that comes from Udana. And interestingly, at the time of death, Udana is the energy that draws individual consciousness up and out of the body as well. So this energy enables us, our soul, to get out. So, like an umbilical cord, they say that, I don't know, I mean, umbilical cord, which ties a baby to mother's womb before birth, it is called that there is something called an astral cord as well, which ties our soul to this body. And when that, at the time of death, that astral cord is cut. Okay, people who have realized God or who have become Vide, they can choose to, exit from their body at their own volition. Otherwise, Mr. Yamraj has to come and force them out of it. We are not willing to do that. It's a painful procedure because of that. And it is said this, it takes soul about 3 days to get a closure. That's why we have those ceremonies, right? 3 days ceremony, 13 days ceremony, to give the soul a closure that, you know what, that the every day when you would wake up and look at the mirror, this was not you. It's very difficult for our soul to accept and acknowledge this is not me. And then that closure, and then it is said that it frequents the places it really likes. Okay, could be restaurants, could be pool table, I don't know, but it goes for all those places which it had a very deep attachment for. And then after 13th day, it gets kind of a closure and its journey starts. So that movement out of the body, Udan forces, facilitates that process, okay, which is kind of interesting. And then the final one is the Apana. This is basically the final prana, which is responsible for the exhalation and the downward outward movement of body. So it is for the elimination of waste in our body, and it is focused at the Muladhara chakra. All the elimination process that happens, it's just through this particular force. And so this basically, all these 5 forces, they have to work in harmony for us to be healthy, hale and hearty. Otherwise, it can cause diseases. And typically these forces, the pranic forces, so to say, lot of it is not lot of it, it is actually governed by this machinery, thought. When Ram asked sage Vashisht, what is the cause of Vyadhi in Ramayana? He said that it all starts here. So if you don't take care of this aspect of your life, the mental aspect of your life, these five key pranic forces, which need to be in harmony all the time, will go out of whack. And when they go out of whack, the Ayurvedic system, like it explains, right, Kapha, Vata, Pitta also goes out of whack. And when things start getting out of whack, that's when you call it disease. That is the origin or the genesis of disease. So if you look at it, it is like only somebody who has a magician only can create this kind of a system. So if you simply think about how our body operates, or how the creation, not the new life comes about, that will help you appreciate that, some genius has created this whole thing, which we take so much for granted. How many of us do we even realize or appreciate that we breathe? It's just happening. Breathing is happening all by itself. Mindful breathing is what pranayama is. And when they say, when you are, in order to reset your mood, you have to take deep breaths. That much influence the breathing has over our body. And what is the driving factor for each one of these forces? Pran, which is our breath. Right? The pranic energy is all fueled by breath only. So every breath that we take, I think we take a normal humans takes about 22,000 breaths a day. Each breath is having such, that respirate, the cell respiration, I think called, every cell is actually, that respiration process takes place where the energy is produced and glucose and mitochondria and all that fun stuff happens. But think of how many 37 trillion cells in our body, so many processes. There are, I think, anabolic processes that happen which repair our body, and then there are catabolic processes that happen which destroy things that are not needed. All that is happening with every breath. Such a sophisticated machinery we are talking about here, right? So it's a work of a magician who has created this thing. Yes, Shyamji, you had a question already. Now let's get
There
into.
are some comments in the chat box. Can I read them?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Samji is saying this topic is very technical, not going into head, hard to remember.
No worries.
Yes, hard
No,
to remember.
you don't need
And
to remember it. Just get overwhelmed and appreciate that Brahmaji has created something very, very important for us, and we need to take care of it responsibly. That's all. You don't need to remember it because nobody is going to quiz you on that. Just remember it's very something very, very important. This body of ours, it's like a temple. Now I'm able to appreciate it. Why, I was being told it is like a temple. It is actually a temple because God resides in it, and He has given us such a wonderful, beautiful machinery as a vehicle to go from point A to point B. So we need to take care of it responsibly. Right? Doing yoga, doing pranayam, taking care of our mind, taking care of giving the food to our soul, and the nourishment that our body needs through nutrients and good thought process. All that we have to take care of responsibly. That's all it means, and we don't need to know anything beyond that. Okay, because none of us are going to do research on this topic or enroll for a course which would require a dissertation. So let's just appreciate that this machinery is fairly complicated, which we take for granted. See, when we eat a lot of ice cream and food and go to sleep, we are being irresponsible towards this sophisticated machinery that God has given us. Our heart, our liver, it continues to work tirelessly to digest the food, to take off all the things that are not needed, and it continues to do that silently. Do we express gratitude towards them? No. And one day we do our job. When we eat, we stuff our stomach and we eat. We said, okay, I've done my job, now you do your job. Okay, and I don't care how you do it. And one day it becomes tired, then we start crying. Oh my God, what happened? So the point here is it's a very delicate, not delicate, it's a pretty resilient system God has given us. We just need to take care of it responsibly and not take it for granted that body, organs, everything is supposed to work. Just appreciate it. It's a very, very nice machinery that has been given to us by God. Okay? Although this body is not us, but it is a vehicle that we need. Now let's get into, I know it's a bit technical, but let's just
two more points. By two more chats. Chirmaji says, we say these names while offering food to God.
Which name?
These 4 names. Do you say no? This for the 5 names of pranas. We offer food. When we offer food, we say these names to God.
Okay.
We say these names while offering food to God.
Okay.
No, Chirmaji says, yeah.
That's fine. Anything that takes your mind to God, that is fine. So if you
And
say, God, I'm offering it to you, God will give you the same credit, whether you say all these 4 names or not, because God only notes our bhav around it. So if you express gratitude to God and take food as his remnant, that is more than enough. So for that, we don't need to really get into the technicalities of it. Simply offer it with bhav and then accept it as his prasad. That is also good enough. Yes. What else is there?
And Madhiji says, can we go back to slide 4, prana?
Okay, sure. I can quickly go.
Take a screenshot quickly.
But yeah, I will not stress too much over the technicalities of it. I just brought in because this concept was introduced. So I thought, okay, let me help you appreciate it a little more. This body of ours that we don't even think about. There used to be a quotation. I remember when I was studying. It said if money is lost, nothing is lost. If health is lost, something is lost. But if character is lost, everything is lost. So it didn't make sense at that point. But health is a very important thing. If you have a toothache, you can't even do Radhe Radhe, Radhe Kam. It will bring you down. And Maharaji says, when we keep on postponing our spirituality to our old age, what will happen? You will not do bhakti at that time. You will not do bhakti of God. You will do bhakti of your body at that time. Leg is hurting, back is hurting, neck is hurting, tooth is hurting. Where will you have time for bhakti? So taking care of body is very, very important. That is essentially what it means. Yes, Manish.
Yeah, the one before this.
This
Yeah,
one?
that one. Yeah,
Okay,
perfect. Thank you.
no worries. Okay, so now let's move on. Let's get into the pranayama aspect of it. Little bit of that. We can talk about it. So this shloka particularly talks about it. And the reason is because we're talking about sacrifice. And one of the sacrifices is the sacrifice where people do fasting. When their diet is curtailed, it helps their senses become weak. The senses are fed by the food that we eat. And when our senses are subdued, then then it helps us think clearly. We are not simply going after the senses itself. So he brought in the concept of samana, which is responsible for the digestion part of it. So the controlling that aspect, fasting from time to time, right? It's like when the body is fasting, it is actually repairing as well. That is why this concept of intermittent fasting is also picking up in Western culture tradition these days. When you're eating, you're making your body work, and when you're giving it a break, it is repairing. So that concept actually, if you look at the tradition, this concept of fasting was always there. Yeah, but if you're doing vrat for Santoshima and this ma for this thing and that thing, then it becomes a little tricky. But fasting in general is good for our health as well. And if you are doing fasting with an understanding that it actually means upavas, that means God should be at the center of your attention throughout the day, not the next meal that you're going to have immediately after fast is over. So that is the real concept. But fasting is important because it is also kind of a yajna and sacrifice that Lord Krishna is saying, because you are curtailing your diet and you are actually not giving food to your other senses. When we are sick, we said, all right, just give me khichdi, I'm fine. And somebody says, no, have chola bhatura, gulab jamun, you'll say, no, give me a break. Why? Because your senses are not cooperating. They need something simple at that point. But when you're back, you're back in full form. Bring it on. So fasting is in a way to simulate where you are depriving your senses of the fuel that it typically craves for throughout the day. All right, so let's move on and talk a little bit about the breath part of it as well. Now, the system of yoga for controlling the breathing process, that's called pranayam. And it is, in the beginning, it is practiced in Hatha Yoga system through different sitting postures. You get your postures right, you know, how you can sit for longer duration and stuff like that. Now, pranayam in itself is composed of two words, pran plus ayam, which is energy of vital air. Pran is energy of vital air. We have seen those five forces. And ayam is stretch, regulation, and control. Essentially, complete controlled breathing is called pranayam. Okay, let's simply understand that breathing, controlled breathing is called pranayam. Okay. Now, within pranayam, there are different aspects. Now, we are going a little technical, but you don't have to really remember, too much. Just understand the key concepts around it. All of these processes are recommended for controlling the senses. So if you do pranayam, people who have practiced it, you would know if you do it properly, whether you are doing Kapalbhati, Anulom Vilom, and Bhastrika, your mind will quieten. It becomes shant. So it usually helps if you want to do meditation, proceed it with the pranayam. That will help you focus better. It just clears off your mind. All the impurities, it just stills your mind. Do it, try it for 5 minutes, you will see that. Okay. So it helps you focus that because it takes away the noise from your mind. Now this practice of controlling airs within the body, they reverse the direction of their passage as well. Apan, and it goes downward, prana goes up. They do the opposite until the currents are neutralized. Anyway, you don't have to get too much into it. Now let's simply understand that the yogis who are inclined towards the practice of pranayam, right, they utilize the process of breath control to help tame the senses and bring the mind into focus. Let's simply understand that. If you understand very simple pranayams, see, one of the biggest contributions of Baba Ramdev is that he has popularized yoga. Otherwise, it used to be a topic accessible to only a privileged few. Iyengar yoga, if you know, how many people would have access to younger yoga, and yoga used to be a topic which like only few people would do, and you are like, oh, you do yoga as if it's something big. But Baba Ramdev has made it simplified, right? And he has brought it to the masses, which helps. So the point here is Lord Krishna is saying that some yogis they use the process of their breath control to help tame the senses. Like I said, similar to fasting, when you deprive senses of its food, it starts bringing in a certain level of discipline in those senses. And same way, because Lord Krishna in this particular shloka has touched upon two concepts. One is of pranayama and other is the samana aspect of the five pranic forces that we spoke about. Samana is the digestion fire, you curtail your diet. So here pranayama can be used to basically control your mind in the spirit of yajna. Control means help you focus on that. So that's where Lord Krishna is talking about. So now let's look at it. What are some of the dynamics behind this? So if you look at it, some people, they are drawn to the practice of pranayama, loosely translated as control of breath. Now this involves, let's look at it, the process. First, your lungs are empty. They're empty, right? It's pretty intuitive. And then it's called puraka, the first step. Lungs are full. Purak is the process of drawing the breath into the lungs. Let's do that. Then it's called antara kumbhaka. Retention is full. So what you do in this is that you hold the breath in the lungs after inhalation. The outgoing breath gets suspended in the incoming breath during the period of suspension. And then rechaka. It's called exhalation, where the process of emptying of lungs from the breath. And then the last one is bahya kumbhak, which is the retention empty. Your incoming breath gets suspended. So you keep the lungs empty after exhalation, not the continuous breathing. Okay. Now you will be wondering, why am I telling you all this stuff, right? Okay, what have it got to do with Bhagavad Gita? The Lord Krishna has brought in this concept, so it must be interesting, right? So Kumbhak aspect, if you look at it, these are advanced techniques and should only be practiced. So don't start practicing it, okay, just because we are talking about it. Even though I'll tell you a few things about Kumbhaks that may give you a reason to try it out, okay, to prolong, but it has to be done under expert guidance. So that's a disclaimer I'm putting. Otherwise, it can cause harm also. So yogis, what do they? Because Lord Krishna has brought in this concept of pranayama, right? Now, how yogis utilize it is what we are going to look at. Big yogis, they do utilize it. So let's try to understand it through some calculation. Okay, I hope. Now you need to wear your mathematics hats on for a little bit. So average person breathes how many times a day? I think I just spoke about that. 22,000 times. Okay. Now, if somebody is given only 22 breaths, how many days will he live for? It's a very difficult question. Anybody can answer that? Anybody? Yes. Sandhya?
1,000, right?
That was a trick question. So one day, 22,000 breaths. If somebody is given only 22,000 breaths, he'll live for only one day.
You said okay.
Okay. So it's one day. So a point here being, sometimes it is said, right? The years that we have in our life are not fixed. It's a number of breaths. So if you start breathing fast, you know what can happen. But if you can breathe slowly, like yogic breath they talk about, see, one of the things when you start advancing spiritually is that your breath also starts getting harmonized. The yogic breath, a yogi can identify another yogi just by their breathing pattern. I think there must be something about it as well, right? They breathe slowly, deeply, all that stuff that we have to practice during pranayama. They are able to do it because they are doing mindful breathing all the time. Yes, Shamji, you had a question. I'm getting into the calculation now. It's going to get interesting. Yes.
Yeah, Ashaji is asking, please repeat the question which you asked.
Okay. I said, okay, let me go slow now. An average person breathes 22,000 times a day. So let's say there is a person who is given 22,000 breaths only in his life. It's the shwas or the breaths that are given to us, not the age. So if you are tense, you start breathing fast. Now, what does that mean? You're cutting down on your breaths. because breaths are limited that are given to us. So the art of slow breathing, long, deep breathing is anyway going to prolong your life, in the sense that your breaths are limited. So if somebody has 22,000 breaths, they are going to live for one day. Now let's move on. What yogis can do.
Samji, a question. Take her
Yes,
question.
Samji.
Samji has a question.
Yes, Samji. Please go ahead. Okay, no question.
No, actually, no question. I was thinking, like, this seems the very easiest way. Without pain, someone who got virat with life, fed up with life, they can start breathing fast. They want to end.
I don't know how true it is or how does that work. I'm just telling you, I mean, based on my understanding, if breaths are limited, then of course our breathing pattern goes on to dictate a lot of it, right? But let's forget that for a moment and say, for a yogi who can hold one breath for 6 months, how many years will they live for? Any idea? Now the question is getting tricky, right? Real maths. It's okay. So it's going to be, no need to calculate. I'll tell you. If somebody can do a kumbhak, let's say you have had advanced techniques of kumbhak. Kumbhak is you breathe in and you stop. We can do that for a few minutes. Some people can do, but let's say you stop. They are going to live for 11,000 years. Okay, how? 6 into 30 into 22,000 divided by 365. Leap year 366, but let's round it off to 11,000 years. So if somebody can do that, just imagine if you can harness this power. Now, intelligent yogi, now I'm tying it back to Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Lord Krishna has given this concept because people have been harnessing this power that is there. So important thing is to appreciate every breath is pran is actually dictating the other 5 forces within your body. And every pran actually, so much it controls within your body. And this is something which we are completely oblivious of. Right? It's just happening, breathing in, breathing out, breathing out. It's a sophisticated thing. It's dictating so many things within your body, and it's a very, very powerful thing if we can harness it. Now, our yogis, they were very intelligent. They understood this concept, and who wanted to attain perfection, they said, all right, we have human life. They understood the Tattva Gyan part of it, maybe to some extent. And then they said, all right, let me at least prolong that aspect, and they could do that. Now, we heard people could live for 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years. So this is a technique they were able to harness for the purpose of. And there are still yogis, if you look at in this world also, who practice this and have life expectancy of more than 100 years, depending upon how much they can harness it. Okay, if you go to Himalayas, you can go and get clicked with them as well. There are enough yogis in mountains and people who are practicing that. Okay. You can find Babas who don't even need floor to sit down on. They will simply levitate in air and doing their meditation there. If you ask a physics professor how is it possible, they'll not be able to explain it. They can do that. So this is the powerhouse that our body is, and the possibilities it has. However, they are not spiritual possibilities, they are still material. Okay, that doesn't mean that is the aim of life. It is just that how we can harness some of these powers to aid in our spiritual journey for us as devotees. So the simple thing is to take care of our body for the sake of prolonging our devotion and seva. Okay, we don't have to practice kumbhaks so that we can live for 11,000 years and stuff like that. That's not the intent of bringing this. Okay. Now, if that is the case, a trivia question, which is the longest kumbhak ever? Who has had the longest kumbhak ever? Does anybody know that? I'll tell you, it's a very interesting one. Okay, I could map it actually when I was going through this topic. Yes, Shyamji.
Yes, Surendraji is saying, was that the case of Bhishma?
There you go. Surendraji got it. Very nice. So yes, the longest kumbhak, I'll tell you, this many years, Satyug, Treta Yug. Our Yug is, if you look at it, where people party, Kali Yug is the shortest one out of all the yugas. And if you put all these yugas together, it is called a Chatur Yug, and which is called Maha Yug or Chatur Yug. If it all adds up to 4.3 million. And when you multiply it by 1,000 years, further 1,000 years, which translates to 71 Chaduryugs and 14 Manvantars. 71 into 14 is roughly 1,000. It is actually equal to 1 day of Brahma, which is called a Kalpa. And this is the largest unit of time that is known to humankind. It equals 4.32 billion years. And this is Kalpa. 1 day, not even night. You multiply it by 2 into 365 into 100. Further, that means 100 years of Brahma is equal to 1 breath of Maha Vishnu. So just imagine the kumbhak that Vishnuji is having. 1 breath and all of this happens. So these are the calculations, astronomical scale of calculations as scriptures have gone to the details of explaining. So this is the biggest kumbhak. At least I found it pretty fascinating. It's not mentioned in scriptures, but I could guess it is kind of a kumbhak only. Okay, so I said 1 breath is holding and that's it. Everything is happening. And when the release happens, the breath comes out, exhale happens. We also breathe in and breathe out. When Vishnu breathes in, that entire thing comes inside. It is called Mahapralay. He breathes out, we again come back. And we are residing in his Mahodar in dormant state. And then we come out and manifest again. And we are residing in his Mahodar with our causal bodies and the reasons for our rebirth, because we have still not exhausted our material vasanas. And then we come back again. All right, lot of calculation.
There's a question from Pragya ji. She's asking, isn't life determined by God at the time of birth?
Yeah, so if he has given you shwasas, then that is in a way like Janam Mrityu is already preordained. We fixed, right? How many shwasas you are given to a particular individual. That is true. In fact, the Janmejaya story at our Swamiji. So God is given us, but that doesn't mean you are going to live what for however. It's a very interesting question. I asked him this question. If God in me has given me 100 years, no matter what I do, right? Eat, drink, and be merry, I'll still going to live for. He said, no, that means your Kriyaman will have no play in it. He said, even that has your play. So that probably explains why certain factors in our current life do determine, how long we're going to live. But it's kind of a virodhabhasi kind of a scene where we say that God has given us, preordained number of years, and at the same time we control it to some extent. I think this is a kind of a duality, one of those dualities even I'm not able to reconcile in my head. But Swamiji said, no, you do have a control, certain level of control you exert, based on how you lead your life. So maybe you have it based on a perfect system. If you lead a life given the abilities on your body, that God genetic code that you're endowed with. But if you don't live responsibly, it could be shortened. Or if we live responsibly, we'll reach the potential that God has endowed us for that particular life. That's how at least I understood it in my head. But it's an interesting question. Can ask Swamiji as well. Okay. Now, the question today is, does soul need to breathe? And the second one is, how can we spiritualize our breathing? Now, breathe, we have understood, is a very, very important thing. It's not an ordinary thing. The ability to breathe, and every breath, it's doing a lot of thing in our body. So how can we spiritualize our breathing? And does soul need to breathe? Let's take this question and get this discussion going. Before that, you wanted to make any announcements? Shamji, I know we have Janmashtami event. I can quickly make those for you. We have a Dallas retreat coming up and a Janmashtami and an LTP events coming up. So they're going to be online as well. I think the online option would get open up a little later. So please hang tightly for that. That option will be available on the website as we get closer to the date. But do look out for that. We're going to have some exciting celebrations with Swamiji on Janmashtami, followed by an LTP program from 20th to 26th. Science of Happiness is the topic. And then we have a Dallas retreat coming up after that as well. So a lot of exciting events coming up. Do look at that and do avail that opportunity. Anything else you wanted to add, Shamji?
सब बोल दिया तुम्हें आपने मेरे बिना बोले ही. And I have posted the links in the chat box for all the events. That's it, Bhai.
Wonderful.
And we also have Raksha Bandhan event that is in the temple on that's on August 11th, in the evening.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Raksha Bandhan is also coming up. So
yeah,
if you are planning to tie Rakhis to your brothers, you can do that in the temple and celebrate with us. We're going to have some nice meals there as well. Okay, so let's get the discussion going then. Okay, one more announcement I wanted to make. So we will be having Janmashtami special sessions. Okay, those 3 days, 16th, 17th, 18th, I believe, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the next week. So I think we can post the link. We are inviting people who want to present a Krishna Leela or want to sing a bhajan. That obviously you'll have to prepare for. We'll publish the details around how much time we want to limit it to so that we can have maximum participation. And of course, the Tattva Gyan around Krishna Jan would be there as well. So we will mix the Gyan, the devotion, and the expression, all the three things during those 3 sessions. So you're invited to participate. And if you have an interest, please fill up that form and our volunteers would be able to help you with any questions that you may have around that. And we'll plan our sessions accordingly so that we can, accommodate all the participants who have shown interest. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's it. We have the Bhajan and Leela activities happening in the temple. That's on 15th, 16th, 17th of this month.
Right. Like I said, if you have not been to Braj or Vrindavan or Golok, the closest simulation you can find it in RKT. Okay, it's a beautiful setup right now. Krishna Janmashtami exhibition. It is pretty mesmerizing the way it has been set up. So do come visit it in person. Else you'll be able to enjoy it on Facebook and other places in due course of time, of course. So thank you for bringing it.
Yeah. That's for people in India, I guess. For people in Dallas, please be there in person.
Yeah, being in Dallas, we get certain privileges. So that's just to make you feel good, Shyamji.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, let's get the discussion going. Let's answer this question because we spoke about breathing today, and we can actually spiritualize it. If we can actually spiritualize it, it's better than, okay, let's continue, and then I'll add some more dimension to it. Okay, which will be
Yeah. Pragiji says, no soul does not require to breathe. Soul is immortal. When in body, then to live in that temple, consciousness comes in form of breath.
Very true. Yes, soul does not require to breathe. It's the body that has been given the vehicle that needs the fuel, and the fuel is pran, or the breath that we take. So soul in itself doesn't need that. It's the body. And the yogis, they can go without fuel for months. Big yogis. That pranayama aspect of it that we spoke about, but yes, the body needs, in order for it to maintain, as we saw, so many complicated processes are happening silently, quietly, just like a well-oiled machine. The pran is the very basis for that. Okay, let's move on. I can see a few more hands, so let's hear.
Yeah, Samji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Yes, soul does not need to breathe, and we can spiritualize breathing by chanting Ra during inhale and Tha, De during exhale, or Radhe during inhale and Shyam during exhale. That's what Swamiji said.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, that is true. Yes, Sri Ramya, you wanted to add something?
I think soul also needs to breathe, but it might not be the material air, but it is something which is needed for its survival. I mean, for its journey. Maybe there is some kind of a different breath that is needed for the soul. Be it or whatever.
Soul doesn't have a nose, by the way, so, and it doesn't need to breathe as well. So soul doesn't need to breathe. It's a body, the vehicle that has been given to us, that needs air for its sustenance. Soul in itself doesn't need.
Okay, but the name of God, isn't that the breath of the soul?
The name of what?
God.
Yeah, it is called as a figure of speech, right? Because it's a food for soul. It is called food for soul also, by the way. It's more of a figure of speech, so to say, that you are giving soul what it needs. But
okay.
It doesn't mean that we have been starving it anyways, but has the soul died? No, right? Soul will continue to exist, whether we give it air, water, or food or not, right? But air, water, and food for it is God's name, truly.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you, Shiramati. Yes, Pragya, you wanted to add something?
We have few chats also. Can you read this first?
Sure.
Sandhya Bhattaji says, we could possibly spiritualize our breathing by chanting Radhe while inhaling and Sham while exhaling. And Swati ji says, Radhe Radhe. Yes, we can say Ra when we breathe in and De when we breathe out. Yes, yeah.
Beautiful. Very true. Yeah, let's hear from Pragati and then I'll add a little more color to it.
Pragati ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Nitin, Shyamji, Rahulji, everyone. Yeah, I think basically everyone has answered. Soul doesn't need to breathe. Soul is Ajar, Amar, Ajanma, eternal. Yeah, but our body definitely needs to breathe. And Maharaji has given us such a powerful tool. Like with every breath, we say Ra, and with every exhalation, we say De. Yeah, and just an element to add to it, like Maharaji says that when we say this Ra and De, we should also bring in the image of Radharani. And if we are able to attach an element of love towards it, then it will go on increasing and it will make our like a spiritual cleansing awesome. Thank you. That's all I wanted to add.
Beautiful points.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Yeah, this is a very powerful practice Maharaj has actually given us. You do Ra and De or Radhe Sham. Now you are spiritualizing the very basis of your life. We have to do that. And if this practice deepens to an extent that it becomes your default setting means you are not even thinking and that jap is just going on inside you. I think that is the state we all should aspire to. So let's take on a week 10-day challenge for that, all of us. Okay, we will fill all the vacuums in our day with Radhe Sham or Radhe. Okay, and see what happens. I would like you to come back and share your experiences around it. Maharaj has given this 10-day challenge. I have not been able to complete it, but let's commit to ourselves as best as we can. Let's do that. That's the best gift we can give to ourselves, actually, right? When we can tie it to our breathing, bring the remembrance. So you're doing so many things in one shot. You're doing Rudhyan, right? You are getting closer to Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmar, Yuddhascha. You are calling Krishna close to you, and you are purifying your senses and pretty much all the Vayus, all the five forces, and all that stuff. It's like there cannot be anything more auspicious than tying your breath to God's name. And if anybody can actually achieve that default setting, that even in their deepest sleep, right? If somebody wakes them up, that jap is going on inside them, that will be so awesome, I'm telling you. So let's take it as a challenge and commit to ourselves that we'll try to do it as best as we can. Okay, so let's do that. I'll also do that and keep triggers for yourself, and let's keep on deepening this practice.
Yeah, trust you me, this thought came to my mind yesterday only. Let me try this.
Sure.
I don't know how, but today you said the same thing.
See? Where I think this topic came up for you, Shyamji. So Krishna, you are Krishna's favorite, one of the favorite childs. All of us, but Krishna is taking special care of you, at least in these days. So
thank you so much. We have few chats in the comment. Take them, please, first.
Sure.
Surendraji says, soul is Brahm Anj, does not die or take births, does not need to breathe.
Very true. See, God.
Priyaji, yeah. Sorry. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Let's finish the comments and then.
Priyaji says, body cannot breathe without the soul. The soul enables the body to breathe. And Lakshmiji says, soul is eternal, does not require breath. Our body is a vehicle which needs breath to run normally, but imparting Radhe during breathing and enlightening our mind and intellect. Spiritually, loving God is what is required.
Beautiful. Very true.
And Asha ji says, is the ajap jap? Is it the ajap jap? I don't know. Asha ji is asking, is it the ajap jap?
Yeah, it's a jap only. You don't need a bead or a mala for that. And you are bringing in remembrance as well. So it is a jap only. Just fill all the vacuum, the spaces, and the free time with the jap to an extent that that jap is going on intuitively and subconsciously. We need to reach that stage. Okay, you can actually reach that stage. I have kind of experienced that, but then you need to continue that practice. Okay, and it is a very nice state to be in. Let's try to do that. See, God has kept a few things under his control. If he would give us control around our breaths also, maybe one day we'll forget breathing, right? People can forget things. Who knows, somebody forgets breathing. Or if he had given us options to change things on our face and all that stuff, then our mind has a novelty bias, right? Who knows? Somebody will pick his nose and say, I'll put it here and ear here. Let me see how I look today. So it's a good thing that breathing and all stuff is controlled by God. But if we can bring mindfulness to that and start reciting names, that will be good. So we need to bring in mindfulness that even though it is something which is orchestrated, one of those things that God just lets it happen. But we can control, not control, but bring in some mindfulness to that. And if we can couple it with God's name, nothing like it. Every breath, if we can do that, it's like a wow thing we can do in our life. Okay. Yes.
Priyaji has a question again. So taking God's name during breath is like gratitude to the soul, which is a tiny part of God.
Is what? I didn't get the question.
So taking God's name during breath is like gratitude to the soul, which is a tiny part of God.
No, it's gratitude to God, I would say. Soul is us only. Soul is our own identity. So when we say Radhe, it's like God is resided in his name and he's put all his powers in his name, right? And if we say God's name, it is purifying and very pleasing to God as well. And you get the same benefit as having a darshan of God when you do it with belief and faith as well. So yeah, you can say in a way it's expressing gratitude to God as well. So, but soul is our identity. So we cannot express gratitude to ourselves, right? We're expressing gratitude to the soul of our soul, which is God himself.
Okay. Yeah. Padmaji, Radhe Radhe.
That tracker in the meantime as well, and the form for that interest, if you want to present during Janmashtami, these two things, please do fill
Already posted the form and the tracker as well. I'll do it again.
Yeah, please do, and do fill out the feedback tracker as well in the meantime. Yes.
Am I on?
Shamji? Yes. Please go ahead.
I just joined. I probably missed the context, but I'm just looking at the question. Breathing and soul. Breathing is a technique, or breathing is a process for our body to survive, because the body goes through the cycle of birth and death. When we can't breathe, then we define that to some extent as death. But soul doesn't have any of that, right? The qualities, soul is part of the God. So there is no beginning, end, or death. So soul has the qualities of everything living. It's already living and it will always be living. Whether the body disappears, we go into next life, we pass away and the body disappears, but the soul is always living and will continue to live. And it was there when God was there, and it will always be there. So there is no question of survival or so that's how I saw it. And the other thing was about the breathing and actually bringing sadhana. How can we bring sadhana into the breathing itself? Every breath that we take is because of God, his grace. And as we are breathing, every breath that we take. So at least I know everybody has a lot of techniques. Some people will put a timer to remember God. But another thing is to, at least if when we develop the attitude of gratitude, or thank God for giving me this moment and breathing, slowly it will become a continuous process. Maybe there are even breaks, but it will be a process if you intentionally, with devotion and bhakti, you put that process in mind and say every breath that I take, it is because of Lord and Sri Krishna, God and Guru, that I'm able to breathe, and let me make this moment productive and develop devotion through my actions. Whatever you do, I think that will give us that grounding of anchoring on the breathing and the purpose, devotional purpose and spiritual purpose to that.
Yep, very true. Everybody's given, the very fact that we wake up and we are able to breathe is a cause for celebration, actually, that we take for granted every day. When we wake up, I don't know what's the statistic, so many thousand or million people, they don't wake up. Right? And the fact that we are able to live, breathe, and have an opportunity to progress further is a blessing in itself. You don't need to go think beyond anything beyond that. So yes, it's an opportunity to actually express our gratitude every second. Um, for whose sake? For our own sake, to purify our own self and get ourselves a step closer to our goal. That's the whole idea. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the yoga and bhoga aspect of it, right? These are the two dichotomies that we deal with throughout our lives, and that is what we're going to talk a little more in detail tomorrow. Yes, Sri Ramya. Beautiful points, Padmaji. Thank you.
Radhe Radhe, I had a question. Like I tried this before, like taking in Sera and breathing out Sera, but as the day progresses or as many days progress, we totally lost in touch with the habit and totally forgot about it also. How can we do it in a way that is consistent and persistent?
Do the practice of chanting, you're saying?
No, the breathing, yeah, taking God's name, Radhe's name while breathing.
I know that is where it is practice part of it is, right? You keep on doing it so much, so much, so much, so much that it becomes your default setting. Default setting means it is, have you experienced that when you are so captivated with some kind of a music that you have played it so many times in your head that keeps repeating in your inside you, right? That state can happen actually. We have experienced it even in material world. Sometimes some tune is just repeating in your mind. If you go listening to a nice bhajan, go to sleep like we are going to do now, next few minutes we're going to spend in reciting a few chantings. Then in the night time also, your mind is repeating those tunes and those words. It can happen. So the whole idea is that to deepen this practice so much, I know there would be discontinuity in between where you forget it, you get hung up in day-to-day work, but then whenever the this remembrance comes back, again start it, and then whenever you forget, again start it. So that is where over time it will start getting better. It's just like whenever you have an opportunity, let's collect the pearls. If somebody tells you there are all precious pearls lying out there, so you just have a day to collect as many as you can. You will be on the overdrive mode. Get bags and pockets and full it. You load over yourself with everything that you can collect. Now here you have to collect God's names as much as frequently as you possibly can. So if you're intellectually inclined and convinced about it, it will start happening. And that's what we need to get better at. We'll all try and see how our experience goes. All right, maybe one more hand and then we can see if somebody is interested in chanting like we always do, and then we can wrap up our session with a few chants.
Yeah, we have few chats in the way.
Sure.
Should I take it first? Pragi ji says, for spiritualized breathing, Guru Nanak Dev ji said, Sukh vele shukrana, dukh vele ardas, har vele simran. Means in happy times, always say thank to God. During misery, pray to God, and every moment take His name.
What was that? Sukh vele?
Sukh vele shukrana, dukh vele ardas, har vele simran.
Very nice. Yeah, beautiful. Very nice, Pragiji. Yeah.
And Simtaji is asking, is Krishna Leela means telling Krishna stories?
You can tell Krishna stories, yeah. Krishna Leela, depicting basically that this is the favorite Leela, and why it captivated your heart. Sure, you can come and talk about it for a few minutes or present it. Either way is fine.
And Ashaji is saying that we have a very nice session by Dr. Nick Shroff to know about beneficial techniques of breathing. I guess Dr. Nick Shroff is also on JK Yoga. He does these techniques every now and then. I guess it's once a week, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, he does that. I'm not aware of it. Yeah, it's a science in itself, actually. If you know about it, right? It's a science in itself. The real question is, all right, you're doing that so that is very important, so that you can live long, so that you can do more seva and devotion, so that you can get closer to God. If that is the case, sure, go for kumbhaks, go for whatever breathing things that you want to do. But in general, also, it's important for us to stay healthy. And breathing can be a great tool for us to harness the focus abilities of our mind and clear our mind, even before we go to meditation. So we look at it that, but if we make the sole goal to crack all the kind of breathings and all, I mean, as long as we are utilizing it for seva and sadhana, then it's good. Otherwise, it's again one of those mechanical things, exercises, right? There are a lot of Ashtanga yogis just becoming flexible and more flexible, and the most flexible is the only aim in their life. Yeah, it's better than something else, but still not good because if we are not mixing devotion with it. That is why I'm saying breathing, if we mix devotion, that's a good way to mix devotion right away. Put God's name in that. That's a beautiful tool Maharaj has given us. In fact, he said, even if you do this practice for 10 to 14 days, a lot of kalyan will happen. You can realize a tangible kalyan within yourself. But it's a challenge. You'll have to take it up. Whoever is willing to take it consistently. Okay. Are we good then? I see your hands. Yes, Sanjay.
Yeah. Radhe Radhe, Sandhya ji.
Radhe Radhe. First of all, thank you for this activity challenge. It's really, really exciting. And just to, I mean, I think like what Sri Ramya ji was asking, some tools that I could think of, I just wanted to quickly mention. For one, that we have this JKO radio. And in that also we have an option where we can set up reminders. So after every hour it says Jai Jai Shri Radhe. So that can also remind you that you have to continue practicing this. And second thing, as always, I strongly feel the journal. So in the morning, if you write that today is my day one of the challenge, I'm going to do this. At the end of the day, if you introspect how much did you do it, then that way you can try and practice continuing it for probably 10 days or forever. So yeah, that's it.
Beautiful tool, Sandhya. Very nice. Yeah, this practice. So you said 1 hour, you can actually change it to 15 minutes also. It's configurable. And yes, it's a good way to start your day that, okay, these are things I'm going to focus on today. And before going to sleep, introspect on how many times did I fail or what I could have done better. If we bring that into our practice, we'll start improving, whether it's managing our anger, whether it's managing relationships, whether it's being more devotion, bringing more devotion to different aspects of our life. That it will be like you will start seeing improvement in a very short amount of time. That's a great practice. Maharaj used to say that always. So yeah. Yes, Kumarji.
Radhe Radhe Nitin ji and Radhe Radhe everyone. So one is Nick Shroff. He has this one on art of science of breathing, right? Every Friday at 10 o'clock. So everyone is free to join that. It's a beautiful class, but it's just the science. You can learn the science and then, of course, try to incorporate what Swamiji said with God's name. It's a bit tough because sometimes I keep count and then I forget God's name. So it's very funny. You have to kind of bring it back each time. But then for Sri Ramya ji's question, and of course Sandhya ji had a very good, this one JK Yoga radio is there, the spiritual journal. Then there is also an app, JK Yoga app, which will kind of remind you. You can set it up so that you can get reminded of this. But the best part is, and I'm not an employee of 3M, and I have not even got any shares of 3M, but the post-it note, I found it so useful because I was going through a time when bad thoughts were coming to me. Like I will feel like, oh my God, I want to just bash this person up, right? And then, sorry to say that, but I went through such a thing when I was really feeling like that. And I luckily I met a person who was from the Brahma Kumaris, and then I got influenced a little bit. Sister Shivani, she gives very good lectures. So it says, I am a pure soul, right? This is something, and she tells it as an affirmation to say that. What I said, I took a post-it note, and take as many post-it notes as you want. Write beautiful things. Same thing, like I used to forget to drink water. You cannot believe this, right? And then suddenly I'll feel like, why am I so thirsty? So I have a post-it note saying, drink water, do yoga, and then think of God. It's really funny how easily we can forget God, right? And then I have to put this, then I thought I'm so forgetful, but doesn't matter, right? All these post-its are there. It's really funny. And people in my own family make fun of me when they see this. They said, can you not remember all these things? Drink water. I said, sorry, that's how I am. But this is so useful, right? It's right in front of us. The computer, we are seeing the computer, we are seeing these things as well. And then we remind ourselves and do those things. This is my simple, silly trick. Thanks, Radhe Radhe.
This is great, actually. Having that visual picture, that affirmation to our mind, it's a very powerful tool. Thing is, when I start writing, it's like the whole wall is covered, and then I forget, okay, which one I should put more importance to. But yeah, once maybe we switch after every week, but it's a great tool. Right? There was a guy who was that Benjamin Franklin, I believe. So he said he would repeat he will pick up 7 habits and then repeat after every week, right? And then the next one, something like that, like for 7 in 1 week, he'll practice, and then the next one, and then he'll repeat the first one, something like that. That practice he brought into the fold, and he had kept reminders for himself throughout so that he could continue to working on that particular thing. And that gives benefit, right? When you sincerely work towards that. Great point. Thank you so much, Kumarji. Yes, Padmaji. Quick. Payalji, you can brace up for your singing or recitation for today, and anybody else who are, then we can do
Yeah, just three things that I want to say. I don't tools or techniques. Everybody's learning method is different. We are not all designed to be a visual learners. We are not all designed to be audio learners. We are not all designed to be kinetic, something that we have to do with the hands. The mechanism and the combination of the body, mind, and the soul for everybody is different, and every child is also different. What is your niche? Identify what is that niche that actually works for you. And we don't have to be feeling incomplete of not having that other skill of audio skills or learning skills. Identify what is your mastery. Do you do better with audio? Do you do better with visuals? Do you do better with kinetic, something that you have to do? If it's something that you have to physically touch and do something, and that's the best way that actually works for you, use a japmala. And then, that japmala constantly will remind you that you have to go through. This is something that you have to listen all the time. Just have JK or radio or anything that you have to. If it's visual, just have some sticky notes or notepads or card stocks or whatever that you need to, wherever your primary location in the houses are, just so that you can identify what is your niche of how you actually learn better. Everybody learns little differently. That was one thing. Identify what is that you actually can master. What is your thing? The other thing that I wanted to add was, many times we are trained this way, and there is nothing wrong in it. Until we want to make a change, which is maybe if you just used to remembering God when good things happen, start remembering him when bad things happen and nothing happens also. Many times it's a combination of good thing, bad thing, nothing in our own perception. So there's nothing wrong in it if you haven't tried remembering him bad things, but a combination of good, bad, nothing, even if nothing is happening, still just try to remember and retrain yourself to use those things. Those are the three things that I wanted to say, and whenever we're ready for bhajan, I'll just sing 2 lines.
Sure. Yeah, I think we are all ready now. We're pretty much well past our time today. So who all are interested, then can raise your hand, and then yes, Payalji, please go ahead. Let's have a bit of a chanting, and that will be a perfect ending to end our session with a nice few chants. All right, over to you.
Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Okay, so I prepared one bhajan for today. I just hope you all like it, and you all can sing along as well if you know it. O काना भी तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो तान. ओ काना भी तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो तान.
मैं तो तेरी प्रेम दीवानी, मुझको तू पहचान। मधुर सुना दो तान, ओ कान्हा अब तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो तान। जब से तुम संग मैंने अपने नैना जोड़ लिए हैं, क्या मैया क्या बाबुल सबसे रिश्ते तोड़ लिए हैं। तेरे मिलने को व्याकुल है ये कब से मेरे प्राण। मधुर सुना दो तान, ओ कान्हा अब तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो तान। सागर से भी गहरी मेरे प्रेम की गहराई, लोक लाज कुल की मर्यादा तज कर मैं तो आई। मेरी प्रीत से ओ निर्मोही, अब ना बनो अनजान। मधुर सुना दो तान, ओ कान्हा अब तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो तान, मधुर सुना दो तान। राधे राधे।
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Took us in a very different world. Very nice. Is it a bhajan? First time I heard it, but very nicely and beautiful.
Yes, it's a bhajan, and I came across this on YouTube, so I literally loved it, and I just thought of practicing it and
Beautiful.
present it over here. Yeah.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. I won't be surprised if you have some kind of a remote connection with Mirabai. Okay, so do check it out.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, most
Check
of
it
the
out
time
from your grandfather, great grandfather. Check it out if there's some link there. Very nice. Thank you so much.
Radhe, Radhe.
Radhe, Radhe. Thank you so much.
We have a few more hands, so let's.
Swati ji, Radhe, Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. I have 5 lines to sing. Okay. राधे राधे बोल श्याम, बाजे चले आएंगे, एक बार आ गए तो कबू नहीं जाएंगे। राधे राधे बोल श्याम, बाजे चले आएंगे, 7 स्वर्ग 5 आप वर्ग ठुकराएंगे, वैकुंठ की भी कामना ना पूर लाएंगे, प्रियतम के सुख में ही सुख पाएंगे, ब्रज रस में ही नित मन को डुबाएंगे। राधे राधे बोल श्याम, बाजे चले आएंगे। राधे राधे. Thank you.
Beautiful, Swati ji. Very nice. See, that's another advantage of saying Radhe Radhe. Whenever you say that, Krishna runs, but he stops because we are not yet pure, okay? But he runs. He has to run whenever you say Radhe. So, and then he stops. And the day we are completely cleansed, and we say Radhe with our, the deepest core, and then he will manifest in front of us. Beautiful, Swati ji. Very nice. All right. 2 more hands.
We have few comments. Ditya, please.
Sure.
So, Asha ji says, beautiful lyrics and expression. Sam ji says, wow, awesome, bhajan Payal ji. And Surendraji is asking, can we justify calling Lord Nirmohi?
Can we justify?
Justify calling Lord Nirmohi.
So Nirmohi is, devotees say that it's a figure of speech again, but yeah, God is actually neither. He said, "No, I have no enemy and I have no friends." He say that in Bhagavad Gita. But when it comes to devotion, the game changes. He becomes enslaved, right? God says that even though I am supremely independent, but under the sway of love, I am enslaved. And he sheds a tear at the same time, with the same intensity, in the same moment when you shed a tear for him as well. So, from that sense, no. So, through devotion, that in Nirmohi God, you can actually make him super emotional as well and enslave him as well. So, in his official avatar, he is Nirmohi. But now you have started building personal connection with him. Now that Nirmohiness will start melting away. So, it really depends how you're approaching. Right now, we are dealing with the Nirmohi God because we are seeking material things from him and we are under the law of karma. When we start becoming Sharanagat, when we start building a personal relationship, then the same Nirmohi will start becoming bound more. He's enslaved by you, will start walking behind you, will start serving you more and more. So that's how it goes.
Padmaji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. In the interest of time, I'll just do. It's a long one, but I'll just do 4 lines. Yeah. Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari He Nad Narayan Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govind Hare Murari He Nad Narayan Vasudeva एकमात्र स्वामी सखा हमारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा.
Beautiful. Very nice, Padmaji. Thank you so much. I see one more hand.
Yeah. Dideshji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. I will recite Kripaluji Maharaj bhajan, emphasizing the Saranagati to the Guruji.
Yeah, we can just limit it to 4 or 5 lines for the sake of.
Okay. गुरुदेव शरण में आई, अब तो लो मोहि अपनाई, कछु पेट संग नहीं लाई, खाली झोली ले आई, असुवन माला ले आई, दो बिगरी मोरी बनाई, मोहि भुक्ति मुक्ति नहीं पाई, यह युगल चरण शरणाई, भव सागर चाहन पाई, गुरु ने भव सिंधु सुखाई, शरणागति राह दिखाई, गुरुवर पर बलि बलि जाई, जन जनमी दुख पाई, अब गुरु की लई शरणाई, तू जा कृपालु शरणाई, हरि परखत बुझ फैलाई, गुरुदेव शरण में आई, अब तो लो मोहि अपनाई. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, Dinesh. You sing really well. Guru Bhajan, you ended up the session with beautiful. Loved it. It's a great way to end the session, actually. Now, if you're going to sleep, you can have some of these reverberating in your head. Wonderful, wonderful. Loved it. All right. So with that, we come to the end of today's session. We can do our closing prayers. We volunteer for that, and then I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We'll discuss the next topic, yoga and bhog, tomorrow. Yes, I think there is a
Left to volunteers.
Yeah, you can. It's your prerogative.
Ji and Ashutosh ji, please, I'll unmute both of them.
Sure.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Surendra ji, Ashutosh ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Shantu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukh Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Thank you. Radhe Radhe. Thank you, everybody. Again, see you tomorrow. Have a blessed day and a great rest of your evening. And don't forget the 10-day challenge, okay? We'll see how it progresses. So, very best. Radhe Radhe. I'll see you all.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.